If you have a great idea and can communicate that just with your words, you can start to create that on screen.
Welcome to VP Land, the podcast where we dive into the future of creative technology. I'm Joey Dowd, your host. In this episode, I am joined by Tim Moore, CEO of View, one of the largest virtual production studio networks. We're going to break down a report he just released, The State of Virtual Production in 2024. In it are a few things that might be surprising, especially around AI.
Deep fakes today are extremely compelling. Now you could have what you look like on your best day every day as a performance and never have to go in front of a camera again.
We'll talk about how fast new AI tech is moving.
And we're moving from virtual to generative very fast. Media is one of the quickest evolving industries of all of the industries out there. So we're obviously one of those that gets hit by disruption first. But, we tend to do really well with finding solutions and bouncing back through disruptions.
And where he sees virtual production stages trending.
We're seeing a big trend in stages aren't getting bigger, they're getting smaller, and they're becoming more and more user-friendly. So we're seeing the productization of a technology that was once very complicated and expensive, now coming to almost the prosumer market.
Tim also predicts a major shakeup in the AI market that could change everything. But perhaps most intriguing is his take on the future of human-computer interaction.
I can't believe this is still around, 100 years later. You got to think about our grandkids are going to be laughing at us that we continue to use keyboards for such a long time.
Links for everything we talk about are available in the show notes, and be sure to subscribe to the VP Land newsletter to stay ahead of the latest tech that is changing the way we're making movies. Just go to vp-land.com. And now let's head into the future of virtual production with Tim Moore. Well, Tim, good to see you again. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you just released a State of Virtual Production report for Q2 2024. How about you kind of give me some of the highlights of what you found most interesting, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the details of the report. So what did you find most interesting?
Well, 3 years into virtual production becoming popularized, I think we're seeing a big trend in stages aren't getting bigger, they're getting smaller, and they're becoming more and more user-friendly. So we're seeing the productization of a technology that was once very complicated and expensive, now coming to almost the prosumer market. You're seeing a lot of internal stages pop up, and there's a big emphasis this year on corporate internal stages and higher education. And so we're just seeing the technology continue to proliferate throughout the industry.
What else has been on your radar in making virtual production easier, like where it doesn't require a virtual art department or doesn't require someone who is an expert in Unreal? What's been on your radar that's sort of been making that process easier?
Well, the big jump has been generative AI. As fast as you can think of something, you can now create the visual equivalent of that. And it's really good. For the most part, you can get photorealistic backgrounds instantly out of a lot of the foundational models that are out there today. So that's a game changer for virtual production when a majority of what you're solving for is just creating that background, which oftentimes is 50% of the scene, is a main character in it and really tells you the context of the content you're watching. And so we're seeing time and time again that more and more people are able to get into the industry because generative AI is allowing them to not have to learn so much complexity of the game engines.
What about other options for generating the photogrammetry, NERFs, Gaussian splats? Have you been seeing that move beyond sort of like experimental stages and like actually in production for being used in actual backgrounds?
Well, there's been a big jump in scan technology. Now with a normal consumer phone, you can go out and scan an environment and take that point cloud and put it directly into a game engine and play it back. And so things like Luma.ai, Valinga, Google just came out with their own version. That these are now enabling people to take 2D to 3D in a really quick way and make things like photogrammetry that used to take a long time to stitch now be done in a matter of minutes instead of days.
Yeah, and these are apps you can scan a scene, a room, location with your phone and extracts images and can build like a 3D model or a 3D rendering of whatever your scene is. Have you found that it's been able to get good enough quality, like assuming, I don't know if you have a background, but it's like it could be a little bit soft and focused. So you don't have to have super great details. Have you found that it's kind of been working for that use case, or what other use cases have you been seeing for it?
Well, I think that's the forgiving nature of the background is while it's a big part of the scene, it is typically the thing that's out of focus. And so you can get away with a little bit lower fidelity using nerfs, even we've seen a lot of big volume stages doing panoramics and blowing them up using things like Topaz to upscale. And so the idea of 2D workflows is really prevalent in the virtual production world because there might be times that you want to do a complex camera movement where you need the full parallax of a 3D world. But about 80% of shots you can get by with 2D and 2.5D plates. And so we're starting to see more and more of that, a part of the virtual production workflow.
Can you tell me a bit more about the production where they wanted to upscale the image? So was it just they already had some panoramic images, but it wasn't big enough for the wall they wanted to use it on?
Yeah, a lot of times in a large volume, you might have a screen that's 12K, 16K, maybe even 20K. And when you look at, standard image, it's just far beyond what a normal resolution would be. And so being able to use an AI upscaler like Topaz, you could do a 6X, 8X, 10X multiplier on that resolution and really get something that's sharp and looks great as far as the background goes.
And now you also mentioned you've been seeing virtual production, the technology expand to other industries beyond media and entertainment. Can you tell me a bit more about what other industries, what other use cases you've been seeing it in?
Well, if you look at the early predictions, in 2021, virtual production was skyrocketing. Some of the early leaders were feature film, media and entertainment. And then in 2023, there was a major correction. There's two major strikes that kind of brought the industry to a screeching halt. And that was the biggest work stoppage we'd seen in 60 years. It was a 52% decline in production spending. And so last year was a tough year for the M&E industry as a whole. But where we've seen the big bounce back is on internal studios, people that have had a legacy or traditional studio for years, and they want to do a digital upgrade with virtual production. And so those stages are growing at a rapid rate, but they're not the mega Mandalorian stages that you've seen in the newspapers. They're very practical, 15-foot, 20-foot LED walls that they're getting amazing results on. And so I think that's one part of the industry that's growing very rapidly. The other part is higher education. And we talk a little bit about this in the white paper, that it's not just teaching virtual production. We're actually seeing that the athletic departments are using it as a recruitment tool. The communications departments are using it as a marketing tool. The online departments are using it as a teaching and training tool. And so virtual production in its newest version has become very useful for a lot of different departments in not only higher ed, but in corporate use cases as well.
Yeah, I saw you have an example with the University of Florida. How are they using it for recruiting?
Well, they realize that every company today is a content company. And in order to be relevant, you have to be online and you have to have videos that are compelling and attracting to bring the right kind of talent to your school. And so particularly now with NIL, there's a lot of dollars behind the athletic programs trying to recruit students to different programs. The University of Florida was really savvy in the sense that they realized if they can help their students be successful in this arena, that they can recruit some of the best talent in the U.S. And so they created a volume on site they call Swamp View. It's a 180 degree volume with the ceiling on it, and they use it for all of their sports, from gymnastics to football, basketball, and everything in between. And so it's been really cool to see how the content's been an attractor to get students that from out of state that maybe not have thought about the University of Florida as a place to go play and now have come down because of the impact that their studio has had.
Yeah, what was the other stat you had in here? It was in the first year, Swamp View hosted productions for all 19 sports teams at UF, a 950% increase from the previous year. Are they making these mostly for like marketing videos, or are they using it for uses that aren't just videos like 180 degree, like let's do a play-by-play analysis kind of thing? Like what are they using it for?
It's really all across the board. They've created new coaches shows where they give insights on, what the coaches are thinking and play-by-play kind of breakdowns. They're using it for promos, not only in-game for the stadium experience, but also social media. And so, there's really no particular form that they're using for it. They're really across the gamut, finding a lot of different value points for their studio.
One other thing you mentioned in the report was a prediction of an AI crash coming. Can you tell me a bit more about what you kind of see with both the AI hype and what you think is going to happen with the crash?
Well, all transformative technologies take a very similar slope. It's called the Gartner hype cycle. And in the beginning, the promise of the new technology to change the world really gets a lot of investment. And what happens is oftentimes, they take something that's really good to excess, and it goes into orbit. It's the newest, shiniest thing, typically gets all the investment behind it. But there's a point where it hits the forces of gravity to say, hey, this is not as valuable as we once thought it was. And that's typically where you see the crash. And this has happened from the internet. 1999, we had the dot-com boom. 2 years later, we had the dot-com bust, one of the biggest corrections. 80% of internet companies went out of business. This happened with the metaverse. This happened with NFTs. It happened with crypto. It also happened with virtual production. We show in the white paper a very clear line of how in 2021, virtual production skyrocketed, but there was a clear correction in 2023. So when I look at generative AI, it is on that happy roller coaster ride going up, straight up to the moon right now. But we have to understand that in order for a technology to go from good to great, it does have to crash and reorganize. And so what I think will happen is it won't be that we're going to decimate the part of the industry that is NVIDIA or OpenAI. But I do think that a lot of the 50,000 startup AI companies that you see today won't be around in 4 or 5 years. A lot of that is going to correct over time, and we'll get just the top winners that really make it through this period. So it's hard to say exactly when that'll happen. Election years are funny because as the economies magically get great come November time. But I do think that the Q4, we're going to see a massive correction in AI and potentially a very large crash based on where it's at today.
Now, AI is a very broad term that kind of covers a whole bunch of use cases and stuff. Do you kind of see it affecting a certain area? Like something that comes to mind is when ChatGPT was rolling out, a bunch of companies built OpenAI wrappers where it was like, we upload your PDF and you could talk to your PDF. And then OpenAI released a feature like that, and it kind of killed a bunch of PDF reading companies. Do you see like any kind of specific areas where like these startups would get hit if it's like image generation, background generation, large language model analysis? Like, yeah, is there any more like specific area you see that the crash would hit more?
Well, I would say that because the way that a lot of these are organized, these are typically point applications, meaning that they're an integration for a very specific need. And some of these broader models, like the OpenAI, you're right, are creating solutions for much broader ranges of things. And so I do think that the areas that probably are the highest at risk are things that are less novel and easy to recreate, because when you look at ChatGPT 4.0 and now going into 5 and 6, they'll likely have all the solutions that these point solutions are making. So I think that's the area that we're going to continue to see the bigger models win out over time.
With other use case or with other adoption of virtual production, obviously one of the big costs is the LED wall. What are you seeing with the hardware end and making it more either accessible if LED walls will always be the solution, if there'll be other options for smaller solutions, or just, what kind of hardware trends do you see to make virtual production in a broad category more adoptable?
Well, LED walls are 20-year-old technology. I mean, we're getting to the point that they're becoming very efficient from a cost metric. So when you look at like the standard technology today, which is surface mounted diodes, that is becoming about 10 to 12% cheaper every single year. And the area that was probably the most expensive was in the fine pixel pitch. When you're getting in the sub 1 category, very expensive, if you're going to get a 0.7 or a zero point 0.9. But if you look back 5 years ago, sub 2 was pretty expensive. 1.5 pixel pitch is about 50% more expensive 5 years ago than it is today. So now some of these finer pixel pitches are becoming affordable. 1.5 millimeter pixel pitch is one that we showed in a report is going to have the biggest decrease this year. And so if you're looking to get into virtual production, it's a good time now because we've hit kind of that cost efficiency curve in the market. But LED is very similar to what we see in consumer electronics, where TVs have continued to get cheaper and cheaper over time. You can get a 55-inch screen TV now for $250. I mean, that was unheard of 10 years ago. So I think we're going to continue to see that in the LED market, that some of these large format LED screens are going to be very affordable in the next year or two.
And what do you think about I've been seeing more and more trends or future adoptions with LED lighting. The manufacturers have been networking their lights and adapting some form of image-based lighting, whether it's an access or whether it's to integrate with a virtual stage. But I feel like it's been a bit more of a trend too, of just like you could just network all of your lights, whether if you're filming on location or not. Where do you see like more elements of virtual production kind of leaking out or spreading to other parts of production that people might not have thought of as virtual production affecting?
Well, I think a big part of virtual production, because it is a magic trick, is that you have to get the lighting right in order for the scene to appear right. And so image-based lighting gives you really two advantages. One is that you're using the same or similar type images to light your character or scene that you are using for the background. But two, you're getting a much more volumetric cast onto the character or the scene. And so when you think about the way that we light traditionally, it's all point source. So you have a fixture over here that's 20 feet away with some diffusion. You have another fixture over here. And that's just not how the real world operates. You have ambient light that wraps around us all day long. And so IBL really is going to give us a more realistic lighting than we've ever seen before. But to the user, the advantage is speed. Because now, as quickly as I can put a background up, I can get lighting that matches or at least gets me to the final mile faster. And that's an exciting thing for a creator, because you could spend a lot of time tinkering trying to get that last 2%. But if you can use IBL to get you almost all the way there, now you're getting to the exciting part quicker.
Yeah, it's been interesting seeing that. It's been interesting seeing some other technology of potentially relighting scenes or being able to like go in later and kind of tweak or replicate the effect you might get from an LED wall without having an LED wall. I mean, do you feel like we're going to see potentially more options like in the virtual production space that just doesn't need or require an LED wall?
Oh, yeah, certainly. I think that if you fast forward a couple of years, we're going to move past the hardware that we have today and be able to virtualize the entire scene. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about the background. I'm talking about the character themselves. Deep fakes today are extremely compelling. A lot of people can't tell the difference between an AI generated character and a real person on camera. And so that has two implications. One, it's very scary because you can do identity spoofing very easily. But two, now you could have what you look like on your best day every day as a performance and never have to go in front of a camera again. So it's going to create a really compelling product in the market. I do still think we're, probably a year away from really passing the uncanny valley to say, we've perfected human performance that's AI generated. But for the most part, to the average person, they can't distinguish what's real or not real today. And that's an extremely interesting moment in time that we've hit.
What do you think this is going to look like in a few years? Is it going to be actor or just people are acting in a volume, but just for the movement and the performance, and then it gets trained? Is it going to be completely generated people? Is it going to be real people in a generated environment? Like, what do you think? How do you think this is going to play out?
Well, I think it's actually more on the appetite of the viewer than it is on the appetite of the creator. Because if you think about it, we can synthetically create a lot of things, but people still like to hear naturally created music, a natural voice. Both of those things we could emulate with computers very easily, but it does feel like the audience is still looking for some of that organic quality that we create, manually. So I don't think we're necessarily 6 months away from moving fully virtual, but I do think that the technology will be there in 6 months. And for many people, they're going to start testing those waters very soon.
Yeah, I think of Phil Galler's talk at the Virtually Everything Summit, and he definitely had like more of a kind of futuristic like AI cameras that like can generate backgrounds in real time. But I remember one of the other things he talked about was the idea of, yes, there will be like AI generated movies or shows or something based on like your personal preference, like you personally want to watch some action movie starring, I don't know, ninjas and cowboys or something that's just created just for you. But that'll just be a genre that some people would want to watch, but that maybe, the bulk of people would still want real life actors on a movie that has a big distribution and some wide release. So do you feel like it's going to be, I don't know, just new genres of like AI as a genre, and then it's like, but you can either like it or watch it, or like it and watch something more traditional?
Well, I think that hyper-personalization is a very interesting idea in the sense that if I know a lot about you, the thing that'll connect the most to you are things that, one, you have an affection for, you like, or two, you have a preference for understanding. And so I think that there is going to be, a large majority of the audience that's curious, hey, if I could watch this Star Wars in my favorite style of other movie, what does it look like? But I think there's going to be a big traditional audience too. It's probably split down the middle that says like, hey, I don't want to change at all what the director's vision was. Just show me the real thing. So I think for the most part, that audience will probably be split 50-50 on who wants to do the new way versus the old way.
Yeah, I think too with the more personalized videos, if it was just made for you and you saw it by yourself, you kind of lose that, hey, let me go talk to my friends about like the movie, because there's no shared experience because it was just made for you. So you're the only one who was able to enjoy your video. How do you feel like, I know you kind of talked about making virtual production easier or more accessible, but what do you feel like, if you could paint a picture of what does it take for a crew to run a virtual production stage now, and like how you think that might change in a few years from now?
I think today you have to have a lot of technical know-how to operate a stage because it's a complex system of a lot of moving parts. You have a 3D game engine, you have motion tracking, you have LED display systems, you have a lot of sync generation happening. And so, it's not for everyone. There's a big technical component. But I think if we fast forward a year or two, we're going to start to see virtual production as an art and a technology that is made for any user, even the non-technical user, where we're using natural language commands to really tell the technology what to do for us. And a lot of this you can already start to see with how generative AI is taking human speech, turning it into text transcripts, and then using that as command code for the machines. And so not only are we not that far off, in many ways it already exists, that we can have stages that are completely non-technical, but more capable than the ones that we had just a year or 2 years ago.
And you also have the View Studio software, or the web portal. So I guess you explain a bit of what that does, and how does that, it sounds like a lot of that kind of fits into where you see things going in the future. So how does that kind of fit into these future workflows that you're envisioning?
Well, yeah, last year we created Virtual Studio, which is a platform for the next generation creator. And the idea behind it was that we wanted to introduce tools that allow you to do things with technology that you've never been able to do before. One of those is like we've seen with Adobe Photoshop, generative fill and generative expand, being able to take scenes to wider and bigger places than they could previously. but also now being able to use natural language in the editing process. So I look at a clip and say, hey, I want this to feel more like a nighttime, or I wish I had more snow in this scene. And now being able to generate that, not just from an image, but using plugins like Runway and Pika Labs and Sora in the future to generate those video elements directly into the scene. And so it's an exciting time because as a creator, you used to have to understand really complex visual effects tools to get those kind of results. Now, if you have a great idea and can communicate that just with your words, you can start to create that on screen. And so virtual studio is really that medium between the creative idea and the output of that idea in video form.
Have you thought of other interface ideas? Because with, if you can think of what you want and have the words to describe it and then get the output. Sometimes, I mean, for me, when I'm prompting, I'm like challenged where I'm trying to think of like what I'm trying to describe, the like words to like of what's in my head. Have you thought of other interface, how we could also interact with AI in the future, whether, I don't know if it's suggested prompts or image, like some image tree to like narrow down what it is you're trying to describe. I don't know if that's been on your radar, like other ways to interact with the AI?
Well, a lot of people aren't verbal. A lot of people are very visual. And so you have to make a multimodal interface that works for everybody. And I think when you're prompting, sometimes what's weird is trying to describe it in a way that the model understands it. And so it almost feels very robotic when you're telling it to move left, edit this, change that. And so when you're talking human to human, you don't even think about that. You're just communicating the way that you talk and their understanding on the other end. And so I think a lot of what we're trying to work towards now is what a concept we call the human interface. And the human interface is taking this encryption that we've learned for years, like the keyboard. The keyboard is a very archaic tool. The QWERTY system built from typewriters of years past has brought its way all the way to the laptop. Like, I can't believe this is still around, 100 years later. You got to think about our grandkids are going to be laughing at us that we continue to use keyboards for such a long time. But that's just the fact of the way the world has evolved. And the same thing with the mouse. Like, we're scrolling around this little thing and pointing and clicking. It's such a limiting way to interface with computers. And so I think the next layer of interactivity is really abstracting technology away from the process to say, hey, how would a 5-year-old tell this scene to come to life? And however that child explains it, that should be the way that the computer understands it and interprets it, so that you don't have that issue of translation of how do I say this in the correct way to prompt it. Just say it however you think, point however works for you. I think the multimodal interface is going to be huge.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I also feel like the other challenge right now is if I was describing AI and I'm like, make a cliff, a house on a cliff side image, and then it makes it, and then I'm like, no, move the camera to the left a little bit. If that happens now, it's going to make a completely new image and it's something completely different that might have absolutely nothing to do with the original image that I liked. I just wanted to move the angle over. So I feel like the other challenge, not just the interfacing, but is being able to keep the generations and tweak them to not have to, where right now it doesn't just throw it out and start from scratch and you get a pulling in the handle of the slot machine and maybe you get something new that you like and maybe you don't.
Well, there's two parts to what you're saying. One is the creative frustration. It's like, how many times do I have to say this in different ways to get what I want? Yeah. Because if you're very exact, AI is right now not the best thing for that. AI is really good at coming up with creative things, but not necessarily exact things. The other part of that, though, is the economics. If you think about it right now, the average chat GPT, just getting a prompt back, the compute power for that is the same as running a light bulb for 30 minutes. One prompt and response is the same as running a light bulb for 30 minutes. Now imagine you're telling a 10-second scene, which is, 24 to 30 frames a second. So 300 frames. Now coming back to you, the amount of energy it takes to run that. Think about if you threw out 90% of what you were prompting, you're creating so much, not just even from the economic standpoint, but from the power consumption standpoint, so much excess waste that we do have to resolve that before we can scale AI, because it's not ready for that now.
Yeah, and you also mentioned one of the, I don't think anyone knows for sure, but one of the theoretical numbers of what it would cost to run Sora, which is an extremely also one of the reasons Sora works so well with the outputs is they just threw a lot more compute power at it and they got better outputs. But yeah, what was the number, or how theoretically that it might cost to run Sora on a...
Some experts have said that it could be up to $100 million a day. So the number I was giving you, 300 frames for 1 10-second video. Now imagine that times 1 million users, times 100 times a day. It really, the cost could get astronomical if they just open this in a public beta. So I think we're going to see it's probably another 9 months to a year till they can get it more efficient to open it to a public model.
Yeah. I think of all of the renderings from the Airhead article when they kept saying they kept getting like faces in the balloon and like weird things in the balloon, and all the rendering power or the compute power to make stuff that you got to throw out the bad takes. Last one, we kind of talked a bit about the next few years, but 10 years or even, I don't know, 5 years, 2030. What do you think things are going to look like in media entertainment and film production?
Well, I think the whole creative landscape is going to change. I mean, if you think about where we were 30 years ago, I know for me, I started on VHS cameras, and to think that media would go completely solid state, that cameras would be all digital, I mean, that was a big transformation. So now we're just in the next step of that, which is we've moved from analog to digital to virtual, and we're moving from virtual to generative very fast. And so, media is one of the quickest evolving industries of all of the industries out there. So we're obviously one of those that gets hit by disruption first. But, we tend to do really well with finding solutions and bouncing back, through disruptions. So I think that if you look at 2030, the game's going to completely change. The creator economy is going to continue to grow. Hollywood won't just be in California. It's going to be distributed across the U.S., across the world. And people in third world countries with limited access to technology will be on the same playing field as people who have the most expensive and best talent in the world. So I think this is really going to democratize filmmaking as we know it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Tim. I really appreciate all the insights. And where can people find the full report and find out more about View?
Yeah, if you want to check out the full white paper, it's at view.network/state of virtual production. And you'll see everything that we talked about today and more. I appreciate you having me on, Joey. It was an exciting time talking through what the future may be with virtual production to come.
Yeah, we could check that back in a year or so and see how the predictions played out. Well, thanks a lot, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And that is it for this episode. Many thanks to Tim for coming on and sharing his thoughts about the future of virtual production. Links for everything we talked about are available in the show notes, over the YouTube description, or over at vp-land.com. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to the VP Land newsletter to stay ahead of all the latest tech that is changing the way we are making movies. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up or a 5-star review if you're listening to this on a podcast. And let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next episode.